Hey everyone, it's Martin Schneider, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering all things sales, growth, RevOps, growth ops, all kinds of other stuff.
And I'm Larry Dignan, Editor-Chief of Constellation Insights, and we're your co-host for CRTV episode 117. Martin, I feel like it's been a while, man.
It has. I think, while we've been together, we haven't necessarily been together on CRTV because we've been doing things like CCE and other big events. So there's been a lot going on, but it seems like it's been a minute.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
So this episode, we're going to cover the news, which I will talk about the great GPU Easter egg hunt. Martin will cover SAP Salesforce automation, and we'll check in with Kristie Grinnell of TD SYNNEX, where I caught up with her. She's in the BT 150. Caught up with her at CCE. But first, let's get to the news. The AI infrastructure thing is batshit crazy right now. I mean, it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
AWS, which, hats off to them. They are really putting on the rally caps when it comes to AI infrastructure. They launched their Project Rainier, which is this massive complex with 500,000 of their own GPU chips to train Anthropic's next version of Claude. And then AWS turned around and landed the OpenAI deal, which I think was for $38 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, everyone's running around just procuring GPUs wherever they can get them. Google Cloud's landing deals, and what's kind of struck me is I'm seeing deals with like former Bitcoin miners, which have all become data center AI plays. Cypher Mining announced a deal with AWS to go with a deal they already had with Google Cloud. Microsoft procured capacity from a company called IREN. So what you're seeing is just this massive land grab of GPUs, and it's kind of fascinating that the Bitcoin miners are basically saying, hey, we know how to procure gear, data centers, and power, and they're using that to their advantage. I don't know when this GPU dance stops, but the spending spree has, benefited all the main players with the exception of Meta, where investors are questioning their spend, which I kind of view as an interesting twist. But yeah, it's just a crazy time in AI infrastructure, and it's kind of two markets. There's enterprise AI, where things just seem like they're about to get rolling, and then there's the AI infrastructure boom, which frankly just depends on whether OpenAI can pay more than $1 trillion of commitments over the next 5 or 6 years. So what's your take, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've laid the facts down on the table, right? I mean, everybody's running around, everybody's looking. It kind of reminds me of, because at the end of the day, AI, and we've talked about this at a lot of our events, the AI forums, the CCE, is we have an energy problem, but that energy does need to be harnessed. But it's kind of like when you look at energy companies today, as they look around anywhere and everywhere, Chevron's got people peeking in every little corner for ways to get energy, get it efficiently, get it cost effectively. We're not really at cost effectively right now. We're at the get it at any, by all means necessary. But we do need to lay that foundation for enterprise AI to be seamless, right? Like we're trying to make AI a utility, right? We're trying to make AI the internet, right? Where it's just something that is an afterthought and it's available and it's embedded in everything we do. But the reality is you do need to set an infrastructure foundation for that to be even close to a reality. And it's not easy. It's not cheap, and there's a lot of moving parts. So getting that together and how that plays out, to your point, it's going to be anyone's guess, but there are people with a lot of resources now and a lot of influence, because I think money's not the only thing. It's the relationship and the influence to get these deals done, right? Because it's not like someone's just waving money. There has to be kind of a meaningful opportunity behind it, right? When you look at what AWS is trying to do, and when you look at OpenAI, you look at these players, it kind of makes sense, and you understand why they're coming to the forefront. But there's a lot of other people going out there trying to pull their GPUs. You talk about the Bitcoin and the mining. I mean, these were use cases for a lot of what the GPUs could do around blockchain and things like that. So they have the proof points, so they can actually play a role and make some money here above what their like 0.0000 coins are doing, right? So
Exactly.
get some money back. But yeah, it's really it's really pretty wild, and I think it's an interesting time. We'll see how it plays out. But it kind of lays into the next thing of who can kind of win and benefit from this. Microsoft, very big relationship with OpenAI, and works with them and gets a lot of infrastructure and capability and functionality from them. At their Power Platform event last week that I was at in Vegas, you hear a lot of talking about how are they injecting AI into everything. How are they allowing what they're calling fabric, right? And their one lake data lakehouse concept, they got to power that somehow, right? So they're gonna benefit from the relationship with OpenAI. But what else are they doing, right? They're bringing a lot of really cool stuff to bear, in kind of what I would say is kind of leveraging AI to actually kind of cover the gap or bridge the gap between what I would say is their applications business, which has been largely kind of mid-market focused, and then their enterprise infrastructure and data and all those types of things, right? That's kind of been a mismatch in their business. Now, when you look at what the Power Platform is bringing with new, like, the Copilot and 365 with new workflow automation that's totally agentic, with all these things where you can just kind of say like, hey, I wish it was cool if I could do this or I could do that. They're really kind of creating applications, creating data visualizations, do all these kind of new things and dashboards, really cool stuff that their applications probably were so far away from being able to do, even with AI being injected into them and being enterprise scale. It's amazing how much like that the AI and their investment and the relationship with OpenAI and just their own innovation is kind of allowing them to leapfrog and kind of even the tide for all of its offerings to be really enterprise grade. So it was an interesting time spending with them to really kind of see where they're going with this, where there is the obvious, like, everyone gets their Copilot and it's really cool and you can do all these things and you can kind of invent things, just talk to your computer and it's going to make you an app. Really cool. But when you think about how they're being able to make that available, how Fabric comes together through OpenAI, through Microsoft's investments, through its data legacy, they have the AI, apps, and data. That's kind of one of the three things, right? And I'll talk about that later in my segment about SAP. But when you've got those three things handled well, you're in a good position, and them having that pole position with OpenAI is really going to help them as well. So it was an interesting time for them to start to become bolder and bolder. One last thing that I did see that was interesting was them talking about kind of vibe coding and then kind of pro coding, like that, all the way up from like no code to like pro coding, and building out what they're calling green zones, which I really like. For a while we haven't had a good concept of like the sandbox for AI. I think Microsoft's figuring that out a bit, where people are actually starting to test and dev in AI mode in a way that I think the guardrails really weren't there before, or even just the concept. So really cool things, a lot of cool innovation there. And Microsoft just continues to impress with their speed of innovation around their AI and their agentic AI.
I think the key word there, and this applies to Microsoft too, is that horizontal play.
Yep.
Agents that go across everything. And I
Yep.
think we're seeing, some of that from SAP. We're seeing a little bit from Microsoft. We're seeing it from AWS, Google Cloud, etc. And it's going to be interesting to watch, because there is going to be an issue where you're sort of like, if you're an enterprise, are you going to go horizontal or a bunch of vertical stacks? Or do you wind up orchestrating through something like either ServiceNow, it could be Databricks. That whole area is open.
Boomi, could be whomever. It could be however you take it, right? There's
there's Boomi.
Number of options for orchestration.
There's so much stuff.
Yeah, but it's interesting when you talk about that kind of horizontal, because when you think about it in a B2B standpoint, if you're a Microsoft or a Google workspace, like, everyone in your company's touching that stuff, right?
Right.
And then there's interesting plays down at the lower end when you think of, like, there's people building like a Zoho desktop, right? Because there's 80 applications that can touch that. If there's Zia applications that are agentic, kind of work across all that, and they make sure that does, that's a really interesting SMB play. So I think that horizontal concept has a lot to a lot of attraction there to be interesting for people to really focus on, rather than, that like the AI agent that does this little thing or this little thing. And then, because you're going to have point solutions doing that and doing that well, so that, that horizontal kind of broad applicable, the every time I open my email, I kind of know what I'm going to work with and I'm going to do that. You're probably not going to get that from your, necessarily your ERP provider or your, your HR, software provider, but you could get it from Microsoft, and because you're probably already using it, you probably already have it, right? So it's pretty interesting how that can play out.
And that's all the time we have for news this week. Just keep an eye out on Constellation Insights and Constellation Research. We'll be at a bunch of conferences. We're already all over the place. Salonis, SAP. We actually have like a European bureau right now.
Yeah,
with, Mike,
Tech Ed in Berlin right now. Yeah, I think Mike and Holger over there. But yeah, we've got UKG, QAD, reInvent, Microsoft Ignite. Will be at. We're all over the place over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, a whole lot of stuff going on. So stay tuned for Martin's Pulse Report on SAP, and then I'll follow up with TD SYNNEX CIO Kristie Grinnell.
Hey, how you doing? Martin Schneider back again, just to talk really quickly about a new Pulse report I've just published on SAP and its latest and greatest Salesforce automation capabilities that they recently announced at their Connect event in Las Vegas last month. Now, SAP's quietly been kind of rebuilding its CX and its SFA tools with the help of AI. AI's got a big part of it, right? But there's some really cool things that came out that aren't just about AI. So I'll get to them first, then I'll talk a little bit about AI. Now, they've created some new loyalty management capabilities, right? Which are really, helping, again, tracking behavior, tracking, what customers are doing, what they're saying about you, being able to turn, good customers into advocates and advocates into brand champions, and doing all that stuff, doing all the rewards and tracking, a really cool loyalty management, right? That can help build customer lifetime value and growth. Really cool, right? They've brought out and added to their engagement cloud, right? Building out this new concept of really optimizing those customer journeys, making sure you're reaching, whether that's B2B or B2B2C, reaching out at the right time with right contextual messages. Really cool stuff, right? Now, WalkMe for CX, right? Now, really cool stuff that they've brought out here. I'll talk a bit about that in the report, really how they can drive adoption and better understand usage. More and more companies in the world have a digital footprint. You might not be a SaaS business or cloud tool or even an AI product out there, but more and more, all traditional businesses are adding, a mobile experience or, the web experience. You want to understand how people are, behaving and engaging with you in your digital properties. WalkMe bringing that in, bringing WalkMe in, integrating it with the CRM and the SFA capabilities really gives you that holistic understanding of what your customers are doing. Really cool stuff, right? A new account planning capability is really cool, right? Using the deep research from Joule, that research agent to go out there and pull everything, both in what inside your company and what's out there on the web about your customers, especially the existing customers, so you can start to create those shared growth plans between sales and customer success. Really cool stuff, right? And then finally, revenue intelligence. This is a new kind of AI native application that they've built that leverages their business data cloud that they've put out a little while ago. Really, again, like pulling all these data sources, marrying it with your pipeline and your forecasting data to really understand what is down to an individual's best path to quota, harder to say than it sounds, right? All the way up to, how does management and executives look at the pipeline and scrutinize it and figure out their, the best growth plans for the entire company for the entire year, right? Really, really cool stuff. Lots of stuff. Now, again, all this laying on a really cool AI foundation where it's not just the Joule agents, right? They look at putting, apps, data, and the AI together to really kind of revolutionize their entire platform and all they're doing. And they're really doing a good job of that, right? So when you look at, where they're going in terms of going from, at first, it was really about cloud transformation, right? Really modernizing the install base, the customer base. Now how do we kind of leapfrog all that and inject all this with AI to kind of supercharge all these deployments, right? So again, really going back to legacy CRM and sales automation customers and telling them, look, you don't even have to do much and you can just get in and start using these agents. They've got these new assistants, which are like bunches of agents that have roles and base, and it's really, really cool stuff. They've done a lot of hard work to really modernize not just the platform, but bring it into the age of AI to, again, like I said, kind of leapfrog everything to get their customers without a lot of effort to start taking advantage of the promise of AI. So really, really cool stuff. The Pulse is available at constellationnr.com. For clients, you can grab it today. If you're not a client, reach out to us, find out how you can get access to the report. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Larry Dignan with Constellation Insights, and we're here with Kristie Grinnell from TD SYNNEX. How you doing?
Very good. So glad to be here with you.
Congratulations on the BT 150. Happy to have you in the club.
Thank you so much. Proud to carry my black card and be a part of the club.
Oh, you got the black card.
Yeah, I got the black card. Yeah.
All right. So I guess let's start off. Tell me what TD SYNNEX does and, kind of how you're thinking about your AI strategy.
Absolutely. So we are a large technology global distributor, one of the largest around APJ, Europe, North America, and Latin America. We work with the vendors to understand their product and to bring it to market for resellers who then bring it to our joint end customers, if you will. So we have the fortune of having a very forward-thinking CEO who is all in on technology and very all in on AI. And with our growth plan, and we have been growing as the technology supply chain continues to grow, we want to grow our business with the use of AI. So it will augment our workforce. We envision a hybrid workforce going forward for operating with excellence, but we also envision that the future of distribution will become more digital as well. Now, we don't think that the human will ever completely be out of the loop, but we do think that those two arms make it imperative that we become what we call an AI fluent company, where everybody in TD SYNNEX can speak AI, meaning know when to use an agent, know when to use Gen AI, know when to use machine learning, know when to even use a bot versus that toolkit, so that we can continue to get more efficient in the way that we grow and grow in ways that we might not grow if we didn't have those tools at our disposal.
So is AI seen as a way to drive revenue growth, or is it more of a productivity thing right now? Because I usually hear one or the other, I don't hear both.
No, yes and yes.
Okay.
We feel it has to be both in order for us to grow. And part of this is, number one, our customers want the same experience, want us to have the same experience as they do. So when they're trying to buy something, when they're trying to figure out, what is the best bundle of software and hardware that is going to meet a customer need, when they're trying to figure something out, they want us as TD SYNNEX employees to be able to walk them through where they are on that journey themselves digitally. So we want the same view. So there's a revenue piece to that. But then on the inside, being a large global distributor, we absolutely see that we're going to have to find the efficiencies in our own company, so that as we grow that revenue, we're growing our profit as well.
So what's your take on using, obviously the company's been formed through, a few mergers, been around for a while. There's,
yes.
There's a decent amount of tech debt laying around.
Absolutely.
How do you see AI agents, sort of collapsing that tech debt or abstracting it away? Or I guess, how do you think about that in terms of architecture?
Yeah, so the overall premise is that we want to create what everybody's calling the AI factory, right? Mm-hmm. We see that need. And that factory is going to have to be able to talk to the data as inputs, as well as the applications as inputs, and create essentially new agents that become the new applications, overriding some of that tech debt that we have, right? And if we can do that well, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? That's the thing, that everybody wants this to happen super fast and tomorrow. Right. But we need to build enough of that platform with all of the agent protocols and standards and security in order to make that happen and become reality. But then our goal would be that one by one, those agents will help us start to take a little bit of the tech debt away, kind of eating the elephant one agent at a time.
Right. And would that also, enable you to be more agile when it comes to supply chain shocks? Because I guess you see one almost weekly. At this point, right?
Definitely. Well, and that's if we do the factory right, and I come from a manufacturing background, and there was the concept of common tooling, right? And
right.
if all of a sudden trucks were selling more than sedans, you would switch the tooling out and have all of your assembly lines deliver for trucks rather than for the sedans. And so very similarly, the AI factory needs to work so that your agents can do the same thing and switch, for where the supply chain is really driving that growth, that need from our vendors and our customers. And so if we do it right, the AI factory becomes plug and play for how that might look, depending on the vendor, depending on the customer, depending on the new technology and the supply chain changes that are coming our way. And I mean, our vendors are constantly looking for new ways to innovate and disrupt the supply chain, as are our customers as they try to resell. So we have to become much more agile, and agents and a plug and play agentic factory will help us to be more agile in doing that if we do it right.
Is the data work done in terms of what you kind of need to? I mean, there's a lot of data flowing.
Is the
all
data
over
work
the place.
ever done?
No, it's never done.
No.
Is it done enough, I guess, is the question.
It's done at a starting point, right? So, the approach we're using is that you just have to pick a domain and say, this is where we're going to start. And then we can go forward. Now, the good news is, and I've only been with TD SYNNEX for just under a year, but, focusing on getting a global data lake and understanding what that looks like has been key for the company over the last several years. So we have all the tools in place. Ensuring that we know how to get the value out of that is now where we're looking as how we do that. And we're actually challenging our leadership as well as our employees to think about how can you use this and where do you think you're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. And if we do that right, then that helps us to not try and boil the ocean with our data, because as a technology distributor globally, we have so much data. And because we've been around for so long, we have so much data, right? And then because we came together through merger and acquisition, it can be messy. So we just have to really focus on one area first, and I don't want to give too much away in case our competitors are listening, but we'll focus on one domain first and do that at a time, and based on that then will help us to grow. The way I see it, you think about this agentic factory that we're trying to build. You started as this tiny little startup. Think about HP in the garage, right? Two guys in a garage. This is like 2 agents in a box, right? So like, how do we have them start? And then all of a sudden we're going to grow that, and that takes all of that to be cleaned up as we go.
How do you think through use cases?
So we're actually we are not trying to get to the nth level of ROI on every use case, because that is by the time you figure that out, it is just going to take too long. Like,
and there has to be hundreds.
10 agents could have been created in the time you're trying to figure that out. So the concept instead is to think about, how much value do we think it's going to drive, and back of the envelope math, how many people will this help to become more productive, or how big is the market that we're trying to have this agent help us look at, which kind of increases the size of the bubble in terms of impact. And then, is it global scale? Is it only for one region? Is it only for one country in a region? Those things. And so looking at it, just very, crude, rudimentary, where do we see that the value could go? And then the ones that are the bigger bubble that impact the most people, then that's what we're gonna go with. Now, there's a lot of somebody said yesterday, there's a lot of art and science to this. It is art and science, and so our leadership is looking at that and saying, yeah, that's the bet I want to place you know, my token on, but we just have to start somewhere and see where they're going to go. I think that will change as we start to mature our factory and think about what that looks like. You know, you're going to get to a point of saturation where you're like, wow, this compute's really expensive. And,
right.
You know, how do we go forward? And so we might start to become more, you know, particular about that. But in the meantime, we just want everybody to feel that they have the ability to get started and to do something that's going to drive value for TD SYNNEX.
Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Any final points?
I think not asking it is not the point, but I think the key message is that every employee has an opportunity now that they didn't before. Because it used to be that IT was the bottleneck, right? And like, I need IT to go do this for me. And now it's opening it up to everybody. And driving that change, it's really not about the technology at this point. It's about the education, the knowledge, and the know-how of your employee base. Do they understand your business? Do they understand the process? Do they understand the value chain and where they could disrupt it? And taking those ideas becomes really key. So for us, this is more the biggest change management exercise we've ever led rather than the biggest IT project we've ever led.
All right, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you, Larry. All right.
Well, that is a wrap on episode 117 of CRTV. Watch for our next episode in 2 weeks.
Next episode in 2 weeks will be Holger Mueller and Liz Miller. And they'll have the next episode of 118 of CRTV. In the meantime, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter/X, and a bunch of other places.
Always use that hashtag CRTV show to find us or to repost us. But as always, subscribe to Constellation Research TV on YouTube, and definitely go to constellationr.com, hit that insights button and subscribe there. Larry's always on it. Anything that happens in tech, Larry's got some thoughts. Larry's giving you the insights. Larry's giving you the news. So make sure you keep up with him and subscribe to our insights and our newsletter. Go to constellationr.com to grab all that. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.